So welcome back, students. Today we will pick up on the Ricardian theory of rent. Okay, it's one of the notes that I've already sent it to you earlier. So here we will discuss based on this the topic rent. Okay, there are two important theories that are related to it. One is the Ricardian theory as well as the modern theory. So as for now, we will discuss on the Ricardian theory of rent, which was developed by a British economist, that is David Ricardo. But before we move on to the main discussion, let us just talk a little bit on what is this rent. Okay, as we all know, if we talking about this rent is simply a payment that is received by one of the factor of production, that is land. And yes, we did learn that we have the four factors of production, that is land, labor, capital, organization. And these factors of production, they sell their services, they offer their services, and in return they are being rewarded. So the rewards that are being obtained by land is referred to as rent. So what is this rent? Yes, in simple word, it is simply a payment that is received by a factor of production, that is land. And yes, if we talk about this land, it might be the surface of the earth, or it might be the different natural resources that are available in nature. Yes, we will discuss some other theories that are related to other so to say, to other payments, such as interest, wages, profits. Okay, so what are all these? Be it if we say rent, or if we say wages, be it interest or profits, they are simply the payment that are obtained by the different factors of production for their services that they offered. So yes, rent is simply a payment which is being received by one of the factors of production, that is land. And yes, if we talk about this rent are of two types. Okay, one which is referred to as the economic rent, the other which is referred to as the contract rent. And uh, first, again, what is this? Let us just talk a little bit on what are these. What is an economic rent and what is a contract rent? Whatever payments that is being paid for the users of land alone, that is referred to as an economic rent. Okay, just suppose like there is a farmer, okay, who doesn't have a single plot of land, and as such, being a farmer, he needs a, a particular plot of land to grow and cultivate different types of crops. So because he don't have a plot of his own, he need to borrow. Okay, and yes, let's say he asks from another rich farmer who really have plenty of land. Okay, so using or borrowing that plot of land, which means that that particular farmer has to make some payments for the use of that particular plot of land. So whatever he pay, it might be whatever that is being charged by the owner. It might be 500 or 1000 per month or whatever amount of money that he pay to the owner for the uses of that particular plot of land, that is referred to as a economic rent. Further, now let's talk about the second type, which is referred to as the contract rent. Okay, let's suppose in that very same example, yes, in that very plot of land which is being cultivated by that particular farmer, let's say farmer A, okay, and that particular plot, it belongs to Mr. B. So what Mr. B did, like being a rich person, so what he did was he made some improvements on that very land, on that very plot of land. Let's say he arranged for proper fencing for that very plot. Let's say he also dug a canals or a well in that very plot. Okay, and so many facilities are being provided by Mr. A to Mr. B on that very plot of land. So because that particular plot of land is well fenced, okay, like no cattle can roam around, okay, and because that particular plot of land is well provided with irrigation facilities. Suppose like there are good networks of canals through all the different directions. Wells are also being dug in that very particular plot. Okay, so what happened was, yes, initially B used to charge to Mr. A, let's say, only 500 as a payment for the use of that particular plot of land alone. Okay, that means this 500 rupees, it is the economic rent. But because of the so many services, of the so many benefits, of the so many facilities that Mr. B is provided to Mr. A, let's say with the proper fencing, with the proper irrigation facilities, with the installation of a well, so on and so forth. What happened was Mr. B will charge something extra, okay, based on whatever services he provide to Mr. A. Let us say he adds another 200 for all the services that he provided, that he carried on, for all the facilities that he provided for that particular plot. Which means here, Mr. A initially used to pay only 500 for the use of that plot of land. But later, after so many improvements that is being made on that plot of land, Mr. A has to pay an extra, let's say an extra of 200 rupees. So in this particular example, what we can say is the 500 rupees that is initially paid by Mr. A to Mr. B, it is an economic rent, whereas the 200 rupees, it is the contract rent. Okay, so what is this contract rent? Contract rent is simply a rent that is being paid um, by the farmer to the owner, say, for the use of land, plus the other facilities that are being provided on that very plot of land. So these are the two distinctions between what is an economic rent and what is a contract rent. So yes, here on the recurrent theory of rent, we will stick only to, or we will consider rent only as a payment for the use of land alone. That means we will consider only that what is referred to as the economic rent. Yes, the recurrent theory, it is one of the famous theory developed by a British economist, David Ricardo. Okay, and here David Ricardo, he defines rent, okay, as that portion of the produce of the earth which is paid to the landlord for the use of the original and indestructible powers of the soil. So based on this particular definition given by Ricardo on rent, what he says, according to him, he says that rent, it is a payment. Payment for what? Payment for the use of the land. Okay, and further he said that this land that Ricardo is been talking about, okay, it's it possesses certain power, okay, and its power is something original, okay, and besides, it's not only it's original, it is something that cannot be easily destroyed. Okay, and if we talk about the power of a land, that means we're talking about the fertility, okay, the fertility of the soil. So here Ricardo says rent is a payment for the use of land, and this plot of land do possess certain powers, and its power is, yes, according to his idea or according to his opinion, it is original in nature, and also it is something indestructible. That means nobody can destroy the power or the fertility of land. And further, here Ricardo, okay, after defining, after made put forth this popular definition on rent, okay, he did try to explain in his very theory how rent comes into the picture, or how rent emerge into the picture, both from what he called, or what he termed as, the intensive cultivation as well as the extensive cultivation. We will discuss when we come to the main part of the theory, what is this intensive cultivation and what is that extensive cultivation. And yes, it is according to this the adoption of these technique that ren emerge, or ren did comes into the picture. And before we come to the main part of the theory, before Ricardo explained his very theory, he did made certain assumptions. Now let us have a look. What are the assumptions made by Ricardo? The first assumption made by Ricardo is that he said that there is perfect competition. That means it is a market form in which there are a large number of buyers and sellers. Secondly, he said that the supply of land is limited. Okay, as what everybody has to accept. Whenever we talk about the supply of land is scarce, as well as, or the supply of land is limited in nature. Further, the third assumption, it is when he states that the law of diminishing returns applies. Okay, what is this law of diminishing returns? Yes, I think some of you might be familiar on what is this law is all about. I won't go in detail what is all about, but I'll just give you a hint or a gist. Okay, like if you talk about any particular producer, his main aim it is to produce more and more output in order to obtain more and more profits. Yes, at one point of time, after producing a certain tons of output, okay, sell them in the market later, and in return, he did reap huge amount of profits. Okay, and yes, seeing that the returns is good, the profit is good, it'll tempt the producer to produce more and more. Let's say if today, if this period he produced 10 tons, in the next period he'll produce 15 or 20 tons, on and on. Okay, and as you go on, profit did keep on increasing, or the returns did keep on increasing. But it does not mean that he will go on and on from 10 to 20, from 20 to 30, 30, 40, 50, 60, so on and so forth. Somewhere this producer, he will have to stop. Okay, which means that at some particular stage or at some particular point, this particular producer, he will stop. He will be satisfied with whatever he produced, with whatever he he obtained as profit. So that this is the law of diminishing returns. And here further, Ricardo also says that rent accrues only from land. That means the payment that we term this as rent, it's obtained not only from any other factors of production, but it's from land alone. Okay. And further, he said that rent arises in the long run. Okay. As we know, like besides the long run, we have the short run, which is a short period. And talking about this rent, that is a payment which emerge or which comes into the picture, it did arise, according to him, only in the long run. Further, land and capital are single factors of production. That means uh, they are the only two factors of production that are being employed, that are being engaged in order to increase the volume of production, so on and so forth. And further, rent, he said that rent is also price determined. He also said that land is cultivated in historical sequence, which means a producer first he will choose the best plot of land, the most fertile, then he'll go to the less fertile plot, and then to the less and less fertile plot, and it's in that order according to Ricardo. So these are the different assumptions that are being made by Ricardo on discussing or on explaining his theory. And yes, students, like just summarizing everything, the Ricardian theory of rent, it is simply a theory which was developed by Ricardo. And in this very theory, Ricardo defines rent as the payment for the use of land. And yes, according to him, this land do possess power. And he said that this power that are being possessed by land, it is something, its power, it's something natural, okay? And it is something that can't be destroyed. That means indestructible powers. And further, yes, is the theory is based on a variety of assumptions. It based on perfect competition. It based on assumption that supply of land is limited. The law of diminishing returns did apply. This rent, okay, it relates only to land. It did arise only in the long run. Land and capital are the only factors of production, the single factors of production that are being employed. It is price determined. And finally, land is being cultivated in a historical sequence. That means, yes, like what I've been telling you earlier, first a farmer or a producer will choose the best, then will go to the less fertile, so on and so forth. So students, in the next class we'll go uh, to the main theory. We will discuss on the main theory what Ricardo talked about rent in this very theory. So for now we'll stop here for today. So thank you.